And you're very welcome to the first episode of the Ladies Gaelic Football podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. My name is Diarmuid Kearney, and we will be bringing you a weekly podcast going through all of the action from this year's TG Cahir All Ireland Ladies Gaelic Football Championships. We have a couple of rounds in the bag so far, and the action is only starting to heat up now over the next few weeks. We do have two All Ireland winners joining us on our podcast. So from Leitrim, last year's intermediate All Ireland champions, we have Clare Owens, and from Fermanagh, we have Joanne Doonan, of course, Fermanagh winning the junior championship last year. Ladies, thank you very much for joining us on this year's podcast.
You're very welcome, Dermot.
Clare, I suppose I'll start with yourselves from Leitrim winning the Mary Quinn Cup. I know it's a cup that has special meaning to everyone from Leitrim, and just what was that feeling like to have gotten over the line in Croke Park last August?
I mean, same as everybody, probably unbelievable. It's definitely a memory that kind of gets better the further you go from it. Like, you look back on a picture and it's even better than the day. But obviously the cup itself was very special. The Quins have they're the kind of foundation of ladies football in Leitrim, and Mary Quinn being probably the foundation cornerstone. So it did add meaning to it for sure. And just every footballer's dream come true, I suppose. So it was a special day for sure.
As someone who's been, I suppose, around that squad a long time and have been involved heavily in Leitrim ladies football, what was that feeling like for yourself just to get your hands on that silverware?
Like probably initially relief, if I'm honest. I'd love to say unbridled joy, but probably a sort of a, my goodness, you've been playing. First season with Leitrim was '06, and bar a couple of seasons here or there, I've been around. So probably relief, as I say, if I'm completely honest. And then the relief turned to joy as the evening went on. But you just, immediate thoughts went to so many people who were around over the years when there was no incentive to be around. And definitely the kind of, we obviously had not to hark back to the past, but 2018 we couldn't field a team, and 2019 there were so many people involved and there was nothing to be gained, but there really wasn't. And I immediately thought of those people, and some are gone to live in different countries and aren't around, but you just feel like you hope that they're looking on going, the effort I made was worth it, because it totally was, and it started from there again. And I don't think we'll ever go back to those days, who knows, but you think of all the people who were kind of with you along the way when it didn't finish the way you wanted it to.
I know you had a great homecoming that evening. I know the weather didn't exactly play its part, but it was great to see so many people coming out. Even the following days after, there was so many events and so many individual little homecomings. That must have been nice as well, just to bring that cup around.
Or weeks. It didn't seem like days.
Weeks. Right.
It was unbelievable. It was amazing, the energy you found every day. Like, you kind of think, right, I can't do this again tomorrow, and then you go, where are we after today? So no, it was brilliant. But people, like you said, Jeremy, the weather was atrocious. Kind of like now, like even though the summer's even better, autumn, but people waited for hours in Carrick and Shannon, and I remember one of the management just saying, like, what is going on here? Like, you'd expect a few to be out, but you definitely didn't expect the numbers that turned out to see us, and waited for hours. Like, we were a long time getting down the road, and everyone was still there and delighted to be there. So, special is a very overused word, but it definitely was very, very special.
I know, Joanne, you had the early start for the day, but I'd say it was a long night up in Fermanagh, and a long week as well. But what was your feeling like to have gotten over that line? I know a few years ago you had that game against Antrim that went to the replay, and just wasn't your day on that occasion for Fermanagh, but fantastic campaign last year and reaped the rewards at the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like Claire says, like, it is phenomenal. I think anyone that plays Gaelic football, I think that's your goal, isn't it? Or your everybody's dream, I suppose, to get up the Hogan stand, lift the cup. And I think, like you said, like, even the past All Irelands we've won, and it's not to take anything away from those, but you obviously want to win in Croke Park, like. And I think sometimes I think when you're getting to them finals, all these doubts and stuff start creeping in, and you nearly make up, but Jesus, can we not win in Croke Park? Is it just Croke Park that we can't win? And you start making up scenarios, you have to talk yourself, what would you wise up, kind of thing. But it was just brilliant to get over the line. Like, it is a phenomenal achievement at any grade, like. And like you said, I know it's early in the day, but it was amazing to stay on and watch Leitrim do it. And I think even for us, it's like, inspiring to see other counties, like, and especially like Leitrim, like you'll agree probably, Claire, that it's like, you know, small counties, you kind of get that kind of, I suppose that I don't know how you describe it, that you get known as being all poor wee small counties and you can't really achieve much, like, whereas like I think he's did a massive like stick the finger up to everybody that like is in, they can be Division 4 and still win the intermediate. You know, it was unreal to watch, like, and I think that's probably what drove us on to, like, even this year to kind of be like, you know, there's no reason why just because we're only up doesn't mean that we can't strive towards that. But it is something that it takes a lot of work and a lot of, you know, like you said, years of building culture. Like even girls that probably aren't there now, that it goes without saying that they had a massive contribution to those wins, like too, even if they're not on the panel that year. Like, so, but yeah, amazing feeling.
Because you obviously spent some time away. You were in Australia for a while and then you came home and we're back getting involved in Fermanagh, back to the winter training sessions in pre-season, all the way along to the league campaign and straight into the All-Ireland series. But for yourself, like, that must have been just a great feeling to be back playing for Fermanagh, putting the Fermanagh jersey on again, but then, you know, everyone's dream to walk up those steps and collect the cup after it, like.
Yeah, exactly. I think there is something special about the GA, and I'm sure any of the girls that have went away and played AFL, that it is just, it's different. I think the whole, like, as much as people say it is where you grew up, you're playing with girls that you've literally known your whole life, like, you know, and there is something special about it, like, and I think it probably shown how much I actually really do love Gaelic, and you know, it's just that kind of community aspect, like everything about it is just like, you're doing it because you want to be there, you know, you're not getting paid to be there, like if anything, you're out money, you know, so it is just amazing to kind of have that, they come back into such like probably higher standards now, and everything's going in a better direction, that you're, you know, things are trying to be at least more professional, even if they're not just quite there yet. And I think like any of the girls come back, like you just want to bring that experience home with you, like, and to be honest, like the girls that are over there still, like it shows like that Gaelic players are going in well conditioned, and you know, we have probably everything here bar the professionalism, or like the actual resources, maybe I should say, as opposed to professionalism. So yeah, it's amazing to come back and still feel like you're playing at a high level too, like.
Both of you, of course, back in action. Of course, this year, Joanne, you played at the weekend, Fermanagh having their first game, and of course the intermediate series. And Clare, you'll be looking forward now for Leitrim going into the senior championship. We'll take a look back, I suppose, at the senior games from the weekend. Galway and Tipperary first up, Group 1 of the senior championship. Impressive win for Galway, and I suppose finalists last year. They've had a good, I suppose, a great 2025 if you want to look back on it, winning the league, winning the Connacht Senior Championship again, and getting the first win. I suppose a lot of confidence built up, no doubt.
Yeah, and I could imagine that. Yeah, sorry, Claire, continue.
Go ahead.
I could imagine that momentum from that league has probably really spurred them on. It shows like they are playing really, really good football too. Like, so I'd say hopefully they'll probably be using that into this competition.
Yeah, they have a team full of scorers, don't they, Claire?
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously had the pleasure, or the whatever you want to call it, of playing against them a few weeks back. Like, I think one of their massive strengths is that they don't necessarily need to score goals. They always rack up a high point score, and there's something quite scary about a team like that, because you can kind of think, right, protect the goals, you don't want them getting any goals, but if then you're thinking they don't need goals to win this game, I think it's a real strength to have that many scorers, and from several different areas of the field. Like, some of their attacks, they're so varied, it's very, very hard to learn on your feet because they're constantly changing them. So yeah, I think they'll be, I don't know any of the girls that well personally, but they were probably very disappointed with their performance last year in Croke Park, let alone the results. So they'll probably want to kind of expel those goals from last year, and they're doing a good job of that so far.
Yeah, to lead 1 goal and 10 points to a point at half time in your opening championship game, I suppose that kind of sets the benchmark straight away for, I suppose, to signal your intent about how you want to kick on now for the remainder of that championship campaign.
Oh yeah, and they're a super team, like, and just full of football, and they're a really nice team to watch. As I say, maybe not when I was on the field watching them, but as a spectator, I think they're a really nice team to watch, and how they play football is very kind of progressive, I suppose, and it's positive football.
they'll be, of course, back out on the field now the weekend against Donegal. I suppose, Claire, you see Galway, you've obviously played them this year. Like, if they can get that second win on the board this early, that'll obviously see them top in the group. If, we'll see, look, what way other things might go. Donegal are a very strong team. They'll be hungry to get, I suppose, a first win on the board as well. But Galway, like, when you look at the likes of Olivia Divilly, Kate Slevin, both getting on the board and kicking them into gear at the weekend, like, they'll just use that now as confidence, and probably having that such a short spell between your first game and your second game, it's probably great for a team.
Yeah, I think obviously it depends, but if you can stay injury free, like, of course, if you're hoping someone's making it back on time, or maybe they need another week, that time is valuable. But in general, I think most girls, if they're fit and able to play, they want to be playing week in and week out if possible. So definitely there's a lot to be said for the momentum that's built up by playing competitive football without a massive gap. And it's hard to train away and know that a game is 5-6 weeks away. So yeah, I think they'll have massive confidence from this weekend. But like you said, Donegal, I also thought the intermediate championship was very competitive and very tight, and then you look at the senior one, and look, they all are, I suppose, the junior the same, but the senior is really, really hard to call this year, or even to call the last four. Let's say I wouldn't attempt to do it right now.
And Joanne, like, the way that the Ulster teams like to play, and like you see the likes of Donegal, like, they're a very strong team, but when they break on the counter, like, they're a very tough team to stop. I know I've seen them so many times. Like, they're just, when Donegal can get into gear, Galway could struggle. I know maybe against Tipperary just didn't exactly fire into gear the way they would have liked. It took them, I say it was like the third quarter before they really got into the game. But at that stage, there was just too much of a score difference in there. But I'd say Galway will have a different maybe frame of mind now going into this challenge with Donegal.
Yeah, like Claire has been saying, like, Donegal are very good as well. Like, and I think they probably want to redeem themselves after the probably also final against Armagh. Like you said, it probably just didn't turn up on that day, and like, they are a very attacking threat when they do get forward and get that ball in. But it is one of them things where when you have a disappointing, I suppose, fine like that, and they haven't played a game for a while now, that it is just coming up against Galway will be a very tough challenge. But like, Donegal are always a force to be reckoned with, like, and they always seem to pull it out of the bag when they need to too. So I reckon they're regrouping. There's a good young team coming through there, but I reckon that it will put up a very good fight against Galway too.
That's Group 1 of the senior series. Looking at Group 2, Kerry getting on the winning side for their All-Ireland title defence, 6 points in the end. But I suppose from my perspective, looking at it, you see Daniel O'Leary coming off the bench. Kerry, they started strong. Mayo came right back into it, and then Hannah Reap gets yellow carded, and Kerry just started kicking on. But I suppose Mayo not scoring, it's just scoring 1 point in the second half, probably a worry for them.
Yeah, of course they won't be happy with that at all. But I thought that was in Kerry, was it?
Yeah, it was in
Kerry. So I thought kind of overall, it wasn't like the result didn't go Mayo's way, but and they wouldn't be happy with it. But I know they've kind of had the league didn't go their way. So coming up against a team like Kerry, so you're always going to be up against it, but like you said, Kerry are, I think, just ticking along very quietly and very calmly. And, people are saying there's a lot of change and all that, but I think they'll be thereabouts at the end of the year as well. Who knows? But like you said, Danielle coming back in there, and I'd say they're feeling okay about how their year is going so far, I'd imagine.
That's the answer now that I would give as a Kerry person, to say, like, after they're
okay.
The league and Munster, we'll take it, kick it away, But I suppose watching the game, they started strong. Mayo kind of never went away, but and Kerry had the wind in the first half, and it's Stack Park. There is a fairly strong wind in there when you do get that advantage. I just thought Mayo were going to kick on in the second half. I know Danielle was rested. I think she might be just carrying a small bit of a knock at the moment, but looked very, very strong, and down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh now at the weekend for a derby against Cork. That's going to be an interesting one. I suppose Cork, from their perspective, Munster didn't go the way that they would have liked. the resurgence of Waterford this year. I know, Claire, you'll be looking at Waterford, and we'll touch on Group 4 in a few minutes, and the way that transpired at the weekend and everything with that. But just, I suppose the Kerry Cork rivalry is so massive, and I think from the Kerry perspective, look, they got away with a 6-point win the last day, and will now look to, I suppose, kick on and get a couple of more scores on the board now against the old rivals.
That's going to be probably one of the games of the groups, I reckon. Like, it will be a really, really good one to watch, and it's all like, you never know what's going to happen with Championship, do you? Like, but that will be a very interesting one, especially down in Park Queeve. But it's a tough group, that group as well. Like, so it'll be interesting to see. This could be a good telltale this weekend, that round.
Yeah, like, I suppose when you look at the senior championship, I mean, we had 2 draws in the opening round of games. We'll start with the one in Group 3. Meath down by 4 with 3 minutes on the clock, and they just managed to turn it around. Shauna Ennis getting a vital goal, and then Vicky Wall just having another inspirational performance for Meath, a goal and 3 points. Like, that's I suppose a big result for that group in general. I suppose everyone thought maybe Armagh, as All-Ireland semi-finalists last year, were looking very strong against Meath, but Meath showing that, from their perspective, they're not going away anytime soon.
Oh, definitely not. Like, I think maybe Meath might even be disappointed with the draw. Like, I mean, you're happy to not lose the game when it ends in a draw, but I definitely think they have aspirations, as they should. They just, they stay in the game. Like, you really can't ever write them off, and that was a super game. Like, it kind of had a bit of everything. But yeah, as I say, I think Meath, well, they'd be happy not to lose, but they would see that game as a game that they would want to and could absolutely win. Like, there is a lot of talk about Armagh, and rightly so, but probably on the day a fair result, and even on just looking at the teams the last couple of years, like, I think Meath haven't gone away.
No, they haven't, and that's for sure. And I suppose, how important is Vicky Wall then to that Meath team? Because we've seen her play an instrumental part in the team. We've seen her taking a step back, pursuing other sports and looking to kick on in her own career. But when you see her performing that well for Meath at this stage of the championship, certainly can put them in that mix. If Vicky Wall is firing the way that we know she can, there's no doubt that Meath will be a force to be reckoned with in this championship.
Oh yeah, I'll let you take this, Joanne, but like, she's just a powerhouse is how I describe her. Like, she's a force of nature on a football field. Like, it's, you kind of have to just stand back and admire her, even when you're her opposition.
I know, and I think she just makes it look so easy, doesn't she? Like, even watching that game on Sunday, like, she just looks like she can't be stopped. Like, I think it is just her sheer like power and speed. Like, when she takes off, and even like a simple 1-2, like, it looks so simple. It's like, oh, we could do that, but it's who she's beating, you know what I mean? Like, even Laura McConville, them girls are quick, and couldn't keep up with her when she went at them. Like, and I think, like, even watching her, you can see how much she orchestrates, like, after score, like, pointing, getting everybody in position. It's just probably that whole ripple effect of her being on the field. Even if she's freaking playing subpar, she's probably playing better than the average player, and her just being on the field is probably confidence for me as well. And I think even like her work rate, like you see, like getting back, like attacking up and down her fitness, like she's so shown the versatility she has in different sports. Like, and obviously you're going to bring that experience in, and for girls around her to learn off her, it's amazing to see. Like, but yeah, it just kind of seemed like Armagh kind of thought they had it won a wee bit, maybe sat off that wee bit more. But I think that's the beauty of ladies football, though. It can change, like you said, in 4 minutes. Like, you could be thinking, oh yeah, we're cruising here. Like, so it is the beauty of ladies football that it can change in the flick of a switch. Like, so it was definitely an interesting finish to that game now.
Because when you look at the way ladies football in Ulster is working at the moment, like, Armagh have really set that gold standard. They've been a joy to watch over the years, but like, they're fast, they're physical, they're a very tough team to break down. And I think Meath will show that maybe Armagh will look back on that. I know they have a week's break now to look ahead to that Kildare game, so maybe just resting the bodies and looking at the attack analysis from that game, just seeing what things worked and what things didn't.
Yeah, but like they have like serious attack and like Aoife McAvoy, like I love watching her play. Like it's unreal. Like, and I think it is just like they have the I suppose the athleticism. Like you can see them getting up and down at the field. And again, someone probably similar to Vicky Wall and how she probably controls the team is Caroline O'Hanlon. Like in that, Jesus, like talk about how long has she been on the panel, like, and still playing midfield. I just think it's amazing. Like, but they are like they're athletes. Like even we played Clan Éireann and Ulster Club last year, and talk about just like women versus ladies, or like children, I say, or girls, I should say. But no, they are like I'd say they will probably be sick now watching that game back to not have seen the game through and to come away with the win. But like you said, a draw is better than, I suppose, losing it in the last kick of the game. So I'd say they'll regroup now before that Kildare game.
So Meath and Kildare, of course, is another fixture this weekend. That brings us to Group 4. Clare had great interest watching the Dublin and Waterford game, a game that had a bizarre own goal and I would say buzzer beater, but I suppose hooter beater point from Kate Sullivan to draw that game. Like, you talk about that Meath and Armagh game having everything. I think the Waterford and Dublin game might have just surpassed it, but like, what a performance for Waterford. When you're missing someone like Kellyanne Hogan, who is your leading scorer, they really, really put it up to Dublin.
Oh yeah, well, like you say, it had everything, and then some. Like the finish on the hooter. I mean, was there ever a better advertisement for the hooter being part of our games? It was absolutely unreal. And yeah, Waterford they're really hitting form by the looks of it. I think Dublin obviously were just glad again to get the draw in the end. But look, they'll be very highly motivated for next weekend's game. Let's put it that way.
Of course, they're obviously playing Leitrim this weekend. You're heading up to the capital. Once again, look, Dublin are very, very strong. But from your own perspective, to get Leitrim into playing senior football again and into the Senior All-Ireland Championship, you've been looking forward to putting it up to them, no doubt.
Look, when you want to progress, like that's why things are graded in sport, and why when you win junior you go up to intermediate, and when you win intermediate you go up to senior. So of course it's where you want to be, and it's the top tier of championship in ladies football. So it's where you want to be. It's a daunting prospect. Obviously, I'm not going to attempt to say otherwise, but at the same time, they're girls and players that I've only watched from afar type thing over the years. So it is a privilege to be on the same field as them and to be in the same, I suppose, competition as them. So look, we'll do our best. We'll give it our best shot, but we're not under any illusions about the challenge that's ahead of us.
Yeah, like Dublin still have some top quality players in that team. I know they've lost a few over the years, but you still have Hannah Turtle, who's putting 1-5 on the board in the first game of the championship, and you've plenty of experience littered around the field, including some Leitrim blood scattered around the place as well. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, of course. We'll have sisters playing each other. So that in itself is a real novelty. But we never thought that would happen. But yeah, look, Dublin, like the structures from an underage level up are out of this world by comparison to most counties, not most counties, but certainly lots of counties around the country. So that in itself, I mean, yeah, they might lose a player or two for different reasons every season, but it's on to the next one. And there's always, the competition for places there is such that when you're gone and out of the loop, you're out of the loop, and there's someone else coming in and doing as good a job, if not better, than you. So, of course, there's always a period of transition, and even the new management that are in, of course, that takes time to settle. But I don't think they'll flinch too hard at it. It's as I say, it's on to next season, and whoever's there to do the job will do the job.
It'll be an interesting episode next week when we have a debrief on that game. We look forward.
I could be very quiet next week, Diarmuid.
So we'll take a look at fixtures for the weekend. Of course, Kildare taking on Meath, Donegal taking on Galway, Dublin against Leitrim, and Cork against Kerry. 4 absolutely top-notch fixtures for the senior championship this weekend, and God only knows who could come out of those games with a win. We'll talk intermediate next. Group 1, Joanne, you had your first game at the weekend against Laois. Laois absolutely flying it since coming down from the senior grade last season. Just didn't go your way in the end, did it?
No, definitely not. And as I was saying before, we kind of got on this call, it was that, it felt like a long time without a competitive game since we played Tyrone in the first round of Ulster. And look, it's as many challenge games or whatever you can play. There is probably nothing like getting a run out in a competitive game. But it's not to take away, Laois were phenomenal. And again, I say women, they were tall, strong, athletic, and just, I was saying, the probably confidence of every single player that got on the ball and hungry to get on the ball, and I think sometimes, again, maybe it's coming up from junior or having that wee doubt in our head, or maybe that younger team in a sense that, you can doubt yourself when things are up against it, that we probably just didn't have that belief, and to be honest, just didn't turn up really. But again, like you said, Laois are phenomenal. They're only down, it was to be probably expected. We're only up, they're only down. If someone had to put money on, I'm sure they would have been putting it on Laois, but probably just more disappointed in our own performance that we didn't turn up as much as we would have liked. But again, just it's a quick turnaround now before Roscommon this weekend.
Could you see that when you played Laois, just that maybe the difference in standard when a team has had that mileage of playing senior competitions to then playing a team who, you were in junior. Now, not saying that the junior championship isn't not competitive, because it is, and we'll talk about it shortly, those two groups. But when you see what Laois have gone through and then you're taking them on, did you see it? I suppose it was fairly close, but they just kind of pulled away in the second half.
I feel like, there's definitely less margin for error as you go up the grades, and maybe Clare will agree. It's not that necessarily that there's, say, less talent or anything like that, but it's that probably, I always talk about decision making in ladies football, but that under pressure, it's not as if you have all the time in the world to be on the ball. You have to think quicker, you have to be more composed, and you're probably more exhausted because you're going up against stronger, more athletic girls, and everything's just ramped up as opposed to necessarily the talent or the selection. But no, they were well drilled, and they just seemed organized and everybody on the same page, and again, maybe that comes with experience, but they're definitely regrouping, and they're definitely putting a marker down for the intermediate championship.
Because I know obviously you're going in now to play in Roscommon. When they took on Laois, like similar to yourselves, they had that gap in between from playing the league, obviously, because of Leitrim winning the championship last year. There was no intermediate championship in Connacht this year, so Roscommon didn't have the whole provincial system to play in, so they were obviously doing the challenge games, the training sessions in between. But obviously, Clare, you've had so many battles with Roscommon over the years. You know what they're like, and when it comes down to, it's a winner takes all game. One goes into the quarter final, one will go into a relegation playoff. So Roscommon are going to be hungry for this one, as well as no doubt Fermanagh will be.
Yeah, of course. Roscommon, I think it's just the way it falls, but it's such a pity that those intermediate kind of games over the years have just been. I've always just thought, when the day comes around and Leitrim are playing Roscommon, it doesn't matter what the form has been like for Roscommon or for Leitrim on that day. It's just kind of like Cork and Kerry this weekend. I think it nearly, form goes out the window, everything goes out the window because it's neighbouring counties, and we don't know why, but we bring out the best in each other. So it was such a pity that couldn't happen this year. But yeah, I think they'll have been working away behind the scenes, and like you said, Joanne, the gap isn't ideal, the break isn't ideal, but as you said, Diarmuid winner takes all, so they won't be found wanting in motivation, that's for sure.
No, I mean, it's going to be, and it's not just going, there's plenty more of those games. Of course, it's round 3 of the intermediate championship this weekend, so of course I'd be some stage the week after when we'll have another episode of this. We'll probably know at some point what way that quarter final draw is going to go. Group 2, again, we're talking about winner takes all scenarios. Tyrone against Westmeath, two teams that you can definitely put into the hat for going the distance this year. Of course, Tyrone, you'll know them, Clare, from the All-Ireland final last year. They're such a very, very strong team. Westmeath, they're thereabouts as well. And both of them have the win on the board. And both of them look very, very strong.
Oh, they do, yeah. I really fancied Westmeath even last year. I thought they looked so strong. Obviously, it didn't go the way they would have wanted, but I thought they were really, really strong even last year. So, if they've continued that, their game against Tyrone should be a Titanic battle. Like you said, Tyrone are just look. We came out on top last year, but I remember that first game we played them. Even it was a home game for us, and it was just the maddest game, and I probably never played a game like it. It was, I think we were 3 goals down with 8 minutes gone. It was crazy stuff, but that's what they're capable of doing. Like, they can score goals, they can score points. They're coming at you from all angles. So Westmeath will need to be ready, but that should be a really, really good game.
Yeah, like when you see that Tyrone performance, like there wasn't much to separate them. In fact, they were level at the break, and then literally in that third quarter, I think it was in the first 16 minutes, they hit 1-5 and just hit, I suppose, maybe hit a Down with a massive sucker punch. And Down came back. They got a late goal from a penalty.
Yes.
I thought, maybe we'll see a bit of late drama here, but Tyrone just have enough in the tank. Probably a bit disheartening for Down to have lost their 2 games. But, Westmeath had a very strong performance against them in round 1. They've had the break to recover. Tyrone now just coming in after a very exhausting Ulster derby. So I don't know how you can call it. I know they have home advantage and they can make it a very difficult place to go to, but Westmeath, like as we said, like they're very strong. You tipped them last year. Like you just don't know what you're going to get from Westmeath, do you?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game, isn't it? And I think that group just shows how fine margins intermediate is. Like, like Down beat Tyrone in the Ulster campaign, and then for Tyrone to basically put them out of their group, and it is going to be fine margin. And like you said, sometimes in games that you can, like, anything can happen, but like you said, Westmeath are very, very good. Tyrone are now probably using, I suppose, the losses. I know we nearly got the edge of them the first game, losing to Down and saying Ulster. They probably are using that to drive them on and probably regroup, which they have, and they were able to see that Down game out. But yeah, I actually feel like that'll be a very, very good game this weekend. Actually, intermediate, like any of the groups, like you said, Claire, it's going to be very fine margins for a lot of teams.
Ulster teams are doing quite well at the moment. As a dog barking in the background there. We have a spectator watching the podcast already. But when you look at that intermediate and the way the Ulster teams are working, brings us to Group 3. Cavan are top for the moment. You have Monaghan in second. Both of them are on 3-point scores. Monaghan now take on Wicklow this weekend to get to finish off that group. Monaghan, like that game against, like, it was Cavan Monaghan, it was a big, massive derby, and then Monaghan winning it in dramatic fashion. Like, that was just an advertisement for how competitive Ulster is, and 2, just how competitive this intermediate championship is going to be. Like, what a game for the neutral.
Well, again, you can't be sleeping in this intermediate champion. Like, there's no opportunity to not turn up, like that. Like, and I think the Ulster teams, to be honest, personally was glad we had a group without Ulster teams, and not to say that Eilish or Roscommon aren't going to be just as good, but just when you play them so many times, like, and there is that kind of local rivalry, and that, like, obviously Cavan getting the upper hand of Monaghan in that Ulster campaign. Do you have a wee bit of complacency? Do you think, we've done it, so you're going to do it again? And we're winning well, that they probably thought they had it. But Monaghan, again, like, influenced off the bench as well, like really good subs to bring on. Like, I have a few girls back out. But yeah, what a finish. Like, it's tough for, if you're a Cavan player, obviously, to let that lead go. But yeah, fantastic. Like you said, for the neutral, it was mad watch. Like,
yeah, no, I know Cavan had a big win at the weekend, 120 to 4 points over Wicklow. Ashton Gilson in flying form for them. And, Cavan, they have the scores when they get going. Obviously, they're going to be watching this game. As I said, if Monaghan win it, they're going to finish top. Cavan will finish second, and Wicklow will go back into the relegation playoffs. I know they were in the relegation battles last year, managed to beat Antrim in the finish up to stay up. But, and I know, Clare, you went there last year in your final group game knowing that you had to win in that group. You came away with a 7-point win that day. Wicklow can be a very, very tough place to go. And Monaghan, while I suppose they had the 1-point win, they will need to win it, but I don't think it'll be that easy.
Definitely not. Well, we were only chatting about that game at the weekend. Like, it's Wicklow are a hard team to beat. Like, I think we played them twice last year, and you're never feeling confident going into it because they've always had a strong tradition, and Monaghan, just on that Monaghan Cavan game, like that is why we love sport, isn't it? Who was writing Monaghan off? It has to be said. Like, probably lots of people, and I don't know why, because like Monaghan have been, obviously, like you said, last year, they had to win to stay up, but like nobody should have been writing them off. And if we kind of subconsciously we were very wrong, or certainly I was. But yeah, brilliant advertisement for the game, like you said. And as I say, why we just love sport, because it was probably not what anyone was expecting. And fair play to Monaghan, because as I said, like, if anyone's been writing them off, they shouldn't have. But yeah, they obviously need to win. And like you said, Wicklow isn't an easy place to travel to and come away with your win.
Now, Wicklow would need a massive, massive win when we're looking at that league table and you see them with a minus 19 points difference. We have seen it before where points difference can, put a team through or see a team drop out of the group stage. But it does look unlikely, even if Wicklow can get their sharpshooters into position. You're looking at a 20-point surplus at the minimum to try and get over the line. And I don't think Monaghan will have a defence that porous this weekend.
Yeah, I think like if you're managing Monaghan, you'd be thinking that, like, obviously there's no room for complacency, like, but like you said, like, nobody's going to be doubting Wicklow's going to be strong too. But I think, if your money was on it, you would imagine like it would be a very, very hard to have a 20-point win over any team in intermediate or have that much of a discrepancy. So I think that would be what you would expect to be the result out of this weekend.
Group 4, another two teams locked in a top of the table battle, Wexford and Clare. Clare, finalists a couple of years ago, didn't get over the line against Kildare. Wexford got all the way to that semi-final last year. Clare, as I was talking to you earlier about it, that was a heart-stopping game for the neutral in Fermanagh last year. Wexford are doing such a good job down there. Lizzie Kent has done Trojan work with that team, and they're probably a team that want to get back to Croke Park. And I know we're talking about teams that are suffering from losses in the past. I think that might fuel them now this year going into this campaign.
Wexford and Clare are two teams that you kind of always expect to see in the latter stages of the intermediate championship. And if they're not there, you're looking at kind of what's going on. So I think they both have, well, I'd imagine they both have aspirations for being in the mix near the end of the season. So this game is a big one for both.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Clare do have a couple of players that are taking time away from football, and I suppose one of them being Fidelma Marinan, who's been a leading scorer for Clare over the years. You don't have her influence. I know they have Chloe Maloney and they have a couple of other very young, exciting forwards, but like this game, Jesus, very, very difficult to call, because Wexford, like when they get going, Chloe Fox is a very, very talented forward as well, and if Clare give her the chance to shoot, like, you just don't know what way this game could turn out. But when we look at, I suppose, the championship as a whole, like, I suppose Offaly are disappointed that they finished bottom of that group. They didn't exactly maybe deliver what they thought that they would. I know I seen them last year. They were strong, just missed out on a quarter-final place. But like that group, like when you have, as you said there, like Wexford and Clare are two teams that you would expect, once that quarter-final draw is made, to come out of that quarter-final draw and go into a semi-final and be they're thereabouts to contest for the silverware this year. Like that group was very, very tough to get out with, and that just shows the level of the standard that the intermediate championship is at the moment.
Yeah, there's definitely
Oh
no
yeah,
easy group. Yeah, isn't it? And like you said, like one game, like 1 point could be the difference in being in a relegation or being in that the quarters. So it is just some like no room for error competition. Like, and I think awfully probably one. I suppose there's no easy group, but like we're unfortunate that is a very very strong group to be up against as well. Like, and like you said, probably our unfortunate that there could be maybe in a relegation again, but not that you'd write any team off. But yeah, it's a tough group.
So that's intermediate. Now we're going to go to the two groups in the junior championship. We've had a couple of rounds played so far. Of course, we've Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 is the 5-team group, and then Group 2, of course, has the 4 teams. We'll start with Group 1, and two very impressive wins so far. Has Sligo topping the group on 6 points. And Clare, from the Connacht perspective, Sligo, again, another team that just didn't have the provincial series to rely on just to keep the bodies fresh after the league campaign. They were impressive in the league earlier on in the year, have shown early on that, with 2 places up for grabs, they're very much in the mix.
definitely. I was very impressed with Sligo in the league this year. I think they've probably had a quiet couple of years, let's call it, relatively speaking. But they're definitely back if they were ever gone away, and just have a couple of young players that have really brought a sort of a fresh look to the team. And yeah, they, like I said, from a Connacht point of view, again, themselves and Roscommon didn't kind of get that competitive opportunity in the stage between the league and the championship. But Sligo in the league for me were very, very impressive, and I'd expect them to do very well in this year's championship.
Yeah, did a very good win over Derry, and then a high scoring performance against Kilkenny. They now have the break after playing the 2 games in a row, and then they have Limerick and they have Louth to look after. Of course, they played each other at the weekend. Louth, of course, making that final last year, and Joanne, of course, you played them in that decider. They're a very, very strong team, and Limerick, it looked at one stage like Limerick had it. You were going into the final few minutes, and then out of nowhere, Kate Flood scores 1-2, chips the Limerick goalkeeper, audacious goal, but completely turns the game on its head in those final few minutes. And Louth have the first win on the board, and that just opens up that group now.
Yeah, them 3, that Louth, Limerick and Sligo, will be all kind of pushing to get out of that group. It is probably without disregarding any of the other teams, like they're probably the favourites at the minute, and it'll be interesting now when Sligo do come up against, I suppose, what you would say is the tougher opponents in that group, like how they fare out against them. And like you said, very tit for tat with Limerick and Louth, and both teams, or you never know what you're going to get when you turn up against them, like, and you can't think that you have a game won again, like this whole competition has shown. But Kate Flood's phenomenal player to have as an asset in that full forward line, and like you said, can turn a game around massively in their favour too. And again, Limerick have some phenomenally speedy players. Like, he used to dread playing them last year too. So again, 2 very very good teams like that. I'd say they're probably in a way glad to have that game over them to push on now with the rest of the group stages.
Because there are 2 teams, like, you obviously played Louth in the All-Ireland final, but you played Limerick in the semi-final, and like they were 2 very, very tough games that you had to get over the line. 1 to get into the final, and 2 to get the silverware. And Louth are hurting from that defeat against G in Croke Park last year. Limerick hurting from that semi-final, and when that group is so competitive now, neither team will want to get another loss on that board.
Definitely not. And I think that, like, any of them teams that's been knocking on the door for a few years, you're always going to be gunning for them to probably really push on and see it through, that they're obviously having their miss, that they want to be in Croke Park at the end of the year. So I would put a lot of, I suppose, money to see them few in the last 4 at least. But yeah, that's a tough group with them in it.
Yeah, we've Sligo on top on 6, Limerick on 3 points, and Louth on 3 points, and of course you've Derry and Kilkenny just bringing up the rear in that group. You're looking at the weekend, Limerick at home to Derry, Louth at home to Kilkenny. I suppose from a Limerick perspective, they'll want to bounce back from that loss. And Louth, look, they got their open win. They'll want to kick on and try and top that group. I suppose everyone wants to get top spot in the group. And Joanne, I've seen it from how your campaign in the junior championship went last year. Like it is such a competitive competition, especially when you have, the one group with the 5 and then even with the 4. I suppose you're seeing it now yourselves with just the three team group. Like it's just every game is almost like a final.
Exactly, like, and it's similar in the league, like, when it had been just like one up and one down, like it's so hard for the top few to keep progressing, like, because there's always 3 or 4 teams that just, I suppose, won't go away. Like they're always knocking on the door, and it can be anyone's year, any year, and Louth and Limerick, I'm sure, are going to be gunning for that, especially Louth after last year's defeat. I know, even talking to a few girls after it, they were very disappointed like that, but again, like, how many times did we lose before we won? Like, it does, like, the experience does stand to you, and seeing games out like that, it will help that Louth team, because there is a good few young girls coming through as well. But likewise, Limerick, again, between league semis and that, like, all that competition does actually, bring that experience with the group of girls as well, to help see them games come championship time. Like, so Sligo again, back what Claire said, like, even playing them in the league this year, like, phenomenal team, like, and again have such scoring threat and young girls coming through that you'd think they were playing for 15 years, really confident on the ball, really athletic. And like, I think that was my argument that I initially put up on my story about Sinead Regan, like in one of her games. I actually think it was against yourselves, Claire, that she had 47 possessions, and I was like, if this was a men's game, she would be getting, like, or like they'll be promoted for, like, Jesus, look at the amount of possessions she had in one game. Like, she's a phenomenal asset to have in the Sligo team, and a real dictator, controls the game really well, and is a massive contribution to them, like.
But like it
for
is
sure.
so competitive. Like when you look at, I suppose, from your league campaign, obviously, you have experiences with Limerick and that. But you look at the other group and you look at Group 2, Carlow and Antrim. Obviously, Antrim were in Division 4 this year, ended up winning it, have been very, very strong. I suppose last year, a very disappointing year for them. I know, just with numbers, they were down to the bare bones for match days. And I looking at them from the league, they just didn't kick on into championship. Like I think they thought they would, just with the numbers that they just had. They were just struggling for times. But from your own experiences of playing them this year, they look like they have turned that corner.
Yeah,
Oh, for
definitely.
sure. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with this year. I think they've definitely regrouped after the loss last year, and they had a point to prove, I think, in the league. And I think they're really just going to, get back up to senior. I don't think nobody ever wants to be that team that kind of rebounds after a few years in intermediate and come back down, and I think as a county as a whole, you want to be up playing at that level. But again, some fantastic footballers, like, and maybe it's just me sick of playing them Ulster teams that you have to play over and over again, but you always know, like, they're going to be full of confidence, they're going to be at you, it's always going to be a tough battle, like, and you can't guarantee if you won the last 3 games that you're going to win the next game. Like, they're always going to be coming with a fight, like, so yeah, I definitely think they'll be pushing on an intermediate and wanting to be put down a marker, junior, sorry, to be get back up in the intermediate.
They've set the marker, I suppose, getting that first win. Then you look at Carlow, who took on London at the weekend, 7-9 to 4 points. Carlow absolutely flying it. Sinead Hayden, 3 goals and 2 points. Clean Niche again on the board. Last year, and even when I was talking to their captain this year, Roisin, at the media launch that we had just before the championship, I was in Parnell that day when they lost to Louth in the semi-final, and they were devastated at full time. Like they were on such a high from that league campaign. Obviously, there they played you in the semi-final. They got to that final, they won it in Burr, like, just for Carlow to get silverware. And then they went on, they played Louth in Portlaoise. in the Leinster final, didn't get over the line that day, regrouped well, went into the championship, had a fantastic campaign, but just, again, it was loud, that stumbling block for them. I suppose from their own perspectives, to get a win like that on the board in your first game, and when you're looking at, you'll obviously have Antrim at a later stage in the competition. They've Longford now coming up next, but that can give them the confidence to maybe just put last year's disappointments just under the rug for the time being.
Oh yeah, I mean, you clock up 7-9 in any game, you have to like that's a good sign. And even for putting things that you're working on in training into practice in a game, and it's still a competitive game, they're invaluable really versus even a challenge. So yeah, good start for them. Like you say, I didn't know exactly that they were very disappointed with last year's exit, but I remember watching a good bit of that game, and um yeah, it was a disappointing finish to the season for them. Like you said, after their league campaign was, you know, I think they surprised everybody with that campaign and how well they won it in the end. But fair play to them. And you would have thought that coming off that as a springboard that they would have gone even further last year in the championship. So yeah, I think they'll be probably using that as motivation this year to push on.
Because how tough are Carlow to play? I know Joanne touched on it earlier when you're talking about those smaller counties that people mightn't think about, but they've done a lot of work. There's a lot of younger players coming through there in that system. They've got some fantastic forwards, as I said there, like, Sinead Hayden turning around and scoring 3 goals and 2 points. Like, that's a fantastic tally to take in, and they'll be, I suppose, they're in the 4-team group themselves, and Antrim look the strong bodies to come out of that group. But from their perspective, just how strong are Carlow when you look at even last year? I know obviously we just touched about it there, the way that it just didn't go the way that they would have liked, getting all the way into that semi-final, but it's encouraging for a county that they can continue to offer, that pathway for younger girls to say, look, I've seen my team win a league title and go all the way to an All-Ireland semi-final, and that can just keep the bodies coming in, and that can help them for the next few years to try and progress into that intermediate rank.
Oh yeah, and they've been really strong on just exactly like you've described there, like making it a good place for younger players to want to be for years now. Like they um I would consider them a very kind of consistent team. Like they come back every year with something new kind of. So like you say, I suppose that's what we're all at really is trying to pave the way as best we can for what's coming next. So I would say they've done a very good job of what you've described there over the last few years, and this could be their year to go all the way in championship. Who knows? But they've been very consistent as a group, and even with turnover of players and stuff, I think they've done that really well. Like players would want to be involved there. They're not an easy team to play. I remember playing them last year in Carlow and being very glad driving out the gate that we'd won the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think when you're getting, like, they've had them few losses that are very marginal, that does really, really motivate teams and really, really, I suppose, bond teams as well. That I definitely think they're definitely a team to be, watched out for, like that, like you said, they're so hard to beat. And I know even when we lost to them in the last few minutes of the league semi, that it was like there's some phenomenal players, like, and some that work really, really well together. Like, that's what I thought. I actually came off saying, like, they were really well connected. They were all on the same page, and like they're only going to have built on that, like, over the last few years. Like, and like them losses are very hurtful but very motivating as well. Like, so you could imagine that will be something that will drive them on this year.
Absolutely. We'll take a look at the Junior Championship fixtures, of course, for this weekend. Antrim taking on London, Limerick against Derry, Longford against Carlow, and Louth against Kilkenny in this week's. Of course, we've round 2 and round 3 with the way those groups have worked. When we look at all the fixtures that we've talked about from senior all the way down to junior, this weekend of action, as with the last couple of weeks that we've seen, like, it is very, very difficult to call across the board. No doubt we'll have plenty of discussions. Of course, the 2 girls might be quiet when we talk about senior and intermediate next week, but sure, look, we'll see what way the weekend transpires. It's no doubt the Ladies Football Championships have been so competitive, and no doubt they will be for the next few weeks as we start to see the teams progressing, and obviously we'll have the quarterfinals coming up now for the intermediate, and seeing just the table toppers in a couple of the other groups as well. But that has been the first episode of the Final Whistle Ladies Gaelic Football podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll have plenty more podcasts coming up for the next few weeks. So my thanks to Joanne and Clare for joining us, as they will be for the remainder of the championship series. So we hope you've enjoyed episode 1, and we'll chat to you next week.